Yes, yes, yes. Oh, baby, yes. You know what that sound means. Time for In the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese, episode 100. That's 1 followed by 2 zeros. How about that? Didn't think we'd ever make it that far. And we are down under for round 3 of the 2024 F1 season for the 38th time. It's the Australian Grand Prix. A record 452,000 people headed to Melbourne, made the pilgrimage for the F1 race this weekend. That is a record for the most attendance of a sporting event in Melbourne, which is the sporting capital of Australia. Did you know that, Michael?
I did not, but I do now, so...
Australia, the land of kangaroos, giant bugs, and some say the best cup of joe in the world. It's ranked number 1, apparently.
Really?
Ranked number 1 to get the best cup of joe you can get is in Australia, apparently. This ain't no travel show. This is an F1 show. We're racing the Albert Park circuit. 3.28 miles, 14 corners, 4, count on 1, 2, 3, 4 DRS zones to help with that passing. You give it the full beans for 70% of your lap. And oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Ring those bells in Maranello, boys and girls. Red Bull gets its first mechanical failure in 2 years. Ends that streak as Max is out in lap 5 with that rear brake fire. Carlos Sainz takes the victory, coming back after the appendectomy 2 weeks ago. Leclerc takes second for that Ferrari 1-2. Oh, it must have been written in the books to have the 100th episode of In the Paddock F1 and a Ferrari 1-2. Oh, it must have been written. We're caffeinated, we're medicated, Grinny. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, as we have to spin around the globe here to get over to Australia. It took the other side of the world to get Ferrari 1-2, but does it matter? Does it matter? As soon as Max's mechanical failure hit, and mechanical failures happen, we talked about it in our preseason episode at length this year, that the odds of Max not having a mechanical failure, 43 straight races without a DNF for Max Verstappen. 43 straight races, not for Red Bull, as you mentioned, but for Max Verstappen. Perez has had a DNF since then, hasn't he?
Not for mechanical reasons.
Not for mechanical. So, wow.
The last mechanical for Red Bull, mechanical failure, was actually Melbourne, 2022, sir.
Wow.
So 2 years.
How about them, Apple? 2 years?
2 years.
Oh, listen. You got to give it up. All good things come to an end, as does Max's streak as well. 43 straight races without a DNF. How about them apples? Really unbelievable. But the weekend goes to Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. The man potentially wouldn't even be able to race this weekend. Earlier in the week, Ollie Bearman was still on the board at 8,000 plus 8,000 to win the race. So. And there's still 3 Ferrari drivers in the top 10 point standings. We are living on Arrakis right now, because it does feel like another planet. The fact that Max Verstappen did not finish the race. I believe in my heart that Japan and China and the following races will tell a very different story.
Let's hope not. Hope not. F1 needed this.
F1 needed this badly.
They needed this. They needed this badly. They needed it. They need to keep seeing Max, just because then viewership's gonna just bomb out. You know it. F1 needed this bad. They needed somebody else to win. I mean, you could see it in the crowd when Sainz took the lead and the entire place just erupted, like coming down there out of the final corner, out of that final corner, and the crowd was just going bananas, no matter what color they were wearing, and a lot of them were wearing orange, of course, for Oscar Piastri, but they were all standing up cheering when they saw Carlos Sainz in the lead of the race come out of that final corner. So F1 needed this bad. Carlos Sainz is a little bit of a streak killer for Max Verstappen, isn't he? He was going for 11 last year when Carlos won in Singapore, and he was going for 10 wins in a row today. when Carlos, ends up with the win here and ends the streak again. So, bit of a Max streak killer is Carlos. And did Ferrari make the wrong decision? And they should have signed the other guy.
That's going to be.
The man is driving angry, and more power to him. But if these performances keep going, and he keeps finishing in front of Leclerc, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Charles Leclerc. A lot of pressure on Charles Leclerc. I mean, he even said it wasn't good enough, so he better kick himself in the pants and get it going, because he's supposed to be the number one driver. I mean, Carlos's 2 starts, he's got a win and a third. So he could have even been, if he raced in Saudi Arabia, maybe Leclerc doesn't even have a podium yet this year. Maybe it's Carlos. So that's a big thing. Let me go with a couple of the things I saw. Perez just not good enough. Not good enough.
Absolutely not.
You're in that car and
all day. All weekend.
All day.
He
all weekend,
snuck
really.
in, like Q3,
Yeah.
he snuck in that last lap that put him second, but only for a moment until Carlos took it.
Yeah.
And then, so he was on front row for about 5 seconds. And then to show up today, and really, I think, and the odds makers as well, thought Sergio was going to be on podium 5th? That is... To me, that's the most shocking thing this weekend, because I think everyone had issues all weekend from P1, 2, 3 and qualifying. I think Ferrari actually seemed to have the most reliable car all weekend until like the end of Q3 when Leclerc had those issues and ended up on the third row, second row to start. But damn, man, Sergio Perez, I know the chatter has gone down a little bit after the first 2 races, but the volume's going to get turned up. This is not a good week to not have a race next weekend for Red Bull with everything going on. There's a lot of time off. There's a lot of time off doing everything with Christian Horner. Now with Max.
There's lots of things going on. There's you got Christian Horner. Is he going to still have a job? You got Max Verstappen. Is he going to leave the team with the power struggle going on there? So if Horner stays, Marco's probably out. So then Max is definitely, adios amigos. You got the just continued rumor daily on his Adrian Newey leaving. Is other members of the Aero team and the technical team going to leave as well? Because everything going on with Horner. So it's madness. They needed like 3 races in a row just to quiet some of that chatter down. I mean, and then you're going to throw in mechanical when the right rear brake locks or doesn't, fully disengage from the start of the race. I mean, people are going to start saying, is all the off-track stuff finally getting in to the garage area now? And somebody made a mistake not checking something right. I mean, that's going to be talked about.
There's a lot.
I mean, it's going to be talked about.
We went from completely boring potential season here before spring started to an absolute wealth of news coming over the next 2 weeks. A lot of second guessing already about Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. A ton of it.
I don't. Lewis's performances, I don't even worry about that whatsoever right now. Leading with that, because that car is not good. That car is not good.
And now you have a little more insight on why he made that move.
I mean, Toto Wolff
Makes
even came out and said. Toto Wolff even came out and said, this car is basically rubbish. We have zero chance against Red Bull. 0. And to be honest, they got no chance against Ferrari, because Ferrari's pace this weekend was very, very much improved. And the talk I've heard coming out of Maranello is the upgrades they are apparently bringing. I think they're bringing them to the first big upgrade is going to be at Imola. And from their testing and such, they say they will be up there with Red Bull, with what they have coming. The Ferraris were quick all weekend. They had also had great race pace. I don't know if you watched FP2 or not, but they were pretty solid on race pace with Red Bull. Maybe
every practice,
Australia.
every practice.
I mean, maybe this track doesn't set up well for Red Bull, and things change. But I know F1's hoping that's not the case, and they hope Ferrari comes because you need a challenge. Having another season of just one team dominating is definitely not going to help at all.
Yeah,
McLaren has definitely established himself as the third best team by far at this point, as well, with the performances that they've thrown in, especially today.
Yeah, 2 quick points before we end this segment and go into. We got greenie bucks. Listen, we got winners and losers. Someone's going to slap themselves. There's a lot of slaps to go around.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get apparently
giving out many.
Apparently, I wish I had 2 more hands. Give these teams more thumbs down. But 2 things. First of all, it's like Red Bull, and then there's a big distance between Ferrari and Red Bull at this moment. I don't care what happened this weekend. And then between Ferrari and everyone else is an equal gap almost between Red Bull and Ferrari, and the Ferrari and McLaren, and maybe McLaren to Mercedes. So we're moving in that direction where we're layering up, right? It looks like Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. I'm sorry, McLaren, Mercedes, and Aston Martin, bringing up the 5th for sure. Haas, which we have not mentioned, double points for Haas. Wow, that was took a lot of luck and a lot of mechanical failure.
I mean, to be honest, right now Haas looks like the best of the mid pack.
They do.
I mean, they've been on the edge of the points most of these races. Even more so than Visa RB.
Same thing last year, though. Same thing last year.
Yep, same thing last year.
Dead last. But the other point I wanted to make is I really feel this is the first weekend for Ferrari in as long time that they're really from P1 to the end of the race. They looked really solid. Outside of some issues, like we said, with Charles Leclerc and Q3 towards the very end, I didn't see many issues as far as the mechanical side. It was very, very interesting. And I think Lewis Hamilton saw something there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Saw something there in Ferrari that we didn't see. Obviously, we wouldn't see. And now I think it's starting to bleed out the reality that Lewis saw between Mercedes and they're going backwards and Ferrari going forwards. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Ferrari had strategy today. How about that? I mean, they went with the undercut with Norris to get Leclerc to second, which he didn't relinquish, which they would have botched that last year, or the last couple of years for sure. Carlos has had a great drive out there. Once you're out in front, when the car is out in front in clean air, it looks brilliant. It looks up there with Red Bull, with stability-wise and whatnot, but in traffic, not so much. I mean, or maybe it's just Charles Leclerc has trouble passing people.
Dirty air,
and the dirty air versus, Carlos, who was right there with Max. So, but I don't know, but it's a huge weekend for our huge boost to the team. Maybe they can take this and bring a fight to Red Bull, which is what we all want to see, because I think I could say it for just about most F1 fans, unless you are a Red Bull fan. We're kind of sick of it. We want to see, some tussles up the front. We don't want the tussles at the mid pack. Like, how much of that race where they were, going to the mid pack to watch battles? There's no battles at the front. You want to see some battles at the front.
You want to see battles at the front. This is what racing's all about. And Formula One does a good job broadcast-wise to kind of make the mid-pack as interesting as they can, because they have no product up front. They have absolutely no product up front. So when you have no product up front, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to make the midfield interesting. We don't want midfield interesting. I love Haas. I couldn't give a shit about watching Haas with 3 laps to go. I shouldn't be watching Haas. You should be watching the front of the field. And that's That's what Formula One's missing, and they need it back badly. And today, I think, was the first step, hopefully, forward in the right direction. Killer right there.
Agreed.
And of course, it is time for my torturous part of my Sunday. At least it's not on Saturday, as it was last time. My day of rest. It'll be on Sunday. And I'm prepared to get my ass kicked all over the place. Three sectors. 3 questions.
3 sectors, 3 questions.
And it's called Quizmaster's Cockpit. We are going to take a ride around the track. Cheese. I'm sure you have your questions ready.
Oh, I do, sir.
So, and you warned me that this will not be good for me. So, I think I am 3 for 6 on the year so far. That, as the kids say, that's an F. 50%. Hoping to get like a C for the year from the toughest teacher there is, and that is you, Cheese. You run a tough classroom, so good thing you never went into teaching because you would make your students cry. So I'll try not to cry.
Sounds.
Yes. All right. Before I choke to death, let's roll.
All right. Let's do this. Question number 1. Carlos Sainz got his 3rd win in Formula One. What drivers crashed out of all 3 of his wins?
Like every driver?
Of the drivers on the grid, there's one driver who crashed out during each of Carlos's 3 wins.
George Russell?
That is correct.
I just remember George Russell crashed out in Singapore and crashed out today.
Yep.
So it was just, what was it?
Yep.
Spain was Carlos's first win.
Britain.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That was the race when Joe was flipping and rolling.
Yes.
Ooh, I didn't think you'd get that one.
Ooh.
Very well done, sir. You probably have no chance the other 2.
Well, I'm now 4 for 7. That might be a passing grade, but we'll go back to the red here.
The test is not complete, sir.
Shoot.
Carlos Sainz came back from an appendectomy to get a win. When is the last time in Formula One that a driver came back from injury or medical and took the checkered flag?
Fernando Alonso?
No. Gerhard Berger.
Oh.
In Germany.
Back in the day.
1997.
Back in the day.
So, 1 for 1.
All right. Listen, I always appreciate a good Gerhard Berger question, so I'll take it. I'll take the F, so now we are back to 4 for 8, so back to failing again.
Final question.
All right.
Ferrari got a 1-2 finish today in Australia. When's the last time Ferrari had a 1-2 finish at the Australian Grand Prix?
At the Australian Grand Prix? Yeah, you're right. Probably like Schumi back in the day. Ought to.
Close, 2004.
Ooh.
Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
Oh, Rubens Barrichello.
So, as decreed on this program a long time ago, how you perform in the cockpit decides how we move into the next mega winners and losers. And you're a loser. So that'll take us into losers. And there's a whole bunch of losers this week.
Including me, apparently.
Well, you were definitely one. That's why we're to go to losers first. But
all right, give me 2, by the way. Give me 2.
Keep it. I'm going to give you 3.
You always go 3, and then I got nothing.
Because 1, I know for a fact you don't have on your list.
All right,
for
all right,
fact.
Go. For a fact. What do you know?
For a fact.
Go.
I know.
Go. Good.
1. Sauber.
Because I know. Yeah, all right, go. I got Sauber.
Sauber. Just, they even redesigned their wheel nut, came up with a whole new design. So they didn't have the same problem. And it still is absolute trash. So fire some people there because that's a mess. So Sauber, disaster. I don't know how you can't do a pit stop for Formula One. That doesn't take a half hour. I mean, that's embarrassing. Straight up embarrassing. Merc, double DNF. It's a mess. Car design's a mess. Drivers just keep calling it out. I mean, Merc is an absolute disaster. And my third one, which I know you don't have, as stated, Pirelli. They brought the wrong tire compound. They went a step lower than they did. Yeah. They did a step lower than they did last year, and it was a graining disaster. I mean, they were bitching about it from Friday on. The entire weekend, the tires were just not good enough for this weekend. So Pirelli, I even thought about giving them the slap as well for doing that because that was bad. That was bad. You want to give some tire strategy design into their race, that's fine. But don't give me a tire that's going to fall apart. I mean, he had the drivers on the mediums hitting on lap 9. Come on. That's not good enough.
Early pits.
Not good enough.
Early pits today.
I mean, that was awful. So Pirelli would be my final loser. And I know you didn't have that one.
And I didn't have that one, and it's a very clever one. And I think we saw it not just on the race, again, but all weekend long. Cars were having problems all weekend, from P1 all the way through. And that's a good one. What do you know? All right. What are you now? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start with Danny Rick. You got to do better.
Yeah,
you got to do better.
Yep.
You got to be.
Well, he's got to do better.
Or at least you got to do better.
Helmut Marko's called him out, and Helmut Marko ain't shy away to can a driver mid-season now. So we love Danny Rick on this show. Danny Rick on this show, but you got to put up or shut up, and it's time to put up.
It's absolutely time to put up, and it's not good. Look, Danny usually does much better in Australia, and in his home race, he did just awful all weekend. He looked bad all weekend. He didn't look good. I mean, and the post race, he looked so unconfident in the post race. You could see it in his face how unconfident he looked, and I think. I love Danny Ricciardo. I think, and there's been a lot of talk over the last week, this is a bad week as well to have an off week for Danny Ricciardo. I would want to get back in the car immediately and be racing next weekend if I was Danny Rick and not have a week off. Yeah. So
I agree.
For sure, you went Sauber, Sergio Perez. Like we talked about it earlier, but I'm going to officially put him in the loser column this weekend. You got to do better as well. You got to do better. When Max goes out, that's your call to say, okay, let's step it up. And when you get complacent on race 3, I know in your head from the domination from the first 2 races, that's great. Remember a few years ago when Ferrari dominated in the desert in the first couple races? Mm-hmm. What happened after that? Mm-hmm. So it is a long season, and Sergio Perez really felt that he took his, no pun intended, foot off the gas as far as his intensity level this weekend. And when Max went out, that's you realize, all right, now's my opportunity to win this race. That's Sergio's opportunity to win that race. And to come in 5th, not even make the podium with Max out. When Max is out that early in the race, and you knew he had problems immediately when Carlos passed him lap 2. So that's Sergio's time to step that F up and win that race. Forget about podium. That was his race to win. And to come in 5th, that's sad. That's sad. And let's talk about that come in. And, Carlos Sainz, who just won the race, doesn't even have a job next year. So, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I can go more, but...
Fernando Alonso.
Alpine. Oh, Fernando Alonso at the end of the race. I was going to say Alpine still stinks, but Fernando Alonso... what the hell are you doing? What are you thinking? The race is over. And
well, no, Russell was coming and he didn't want to get past, and let's be honest, he brake checked him. I mean, telemetry showed he was off the gas 100 meters earlier than he had the entire race. And his explanation to the stewards was that, he wanted to come into the corner slower so he can get a better exit. Well, you're not doing it 100 meters early. So that was a brake check on George Russell and cost the man the crash. That's bad form. 20-second penalties.
That's a big penalty.
And that's a big penalty. And he gave him
6 to 8.
And he gave him 3 points.
6 to 8.
It's big. It's a big penalty. It's a big penalty.
So those are our losers for the week. Let's go right into winners, sir.
Well, I'm going to leave one definitely for you. But we trash him enough on this show.
Aforementioned. Absolutely.
We trash him enough on this show. But Yuki Tsunoda in the points, 8th.
100%.
Showing up Danny Ricciardo. Showing him up this year in the same car. So got to give it up to Yuki. Definitely doesn't have a chance ever to get in that Red Bull. I mean, they've even said he's not mature enough, and he's displayed that. But it's a good finish for Yuki. And I'm just going to gloat a little bit here in Ferrari. 1-2 finish. Huge. Opening up that gap between them and McLaren. I think they got like a 40-something point lead now of McLaren this early, and they're only a handful of points, I think, behind Red Bull. So, huge.
Listen, Ferrari needed that, but F1 needed that more.
Yes.
F1 needed that more. Ferrari needed that badly, but F1 needed that a lot more. You good?
Yeah, I'll stop right there.
A name we have not mentioned on the show. A name we have not mentioned on the show, like 20 plus minutes in. How do we not mention Lando Norris's name yet? Guys on podium, 3-4 for McLaren. Oscar Piastri. He races with a lot more maturity than guys a lot older than he does.
Yeah.
I put Oscar Piastri next to the maturity of Lance Stroll, and you see the difference and the age difference versus the maturity level. Oscar Piastri should have been doing what Lance Stroll could have been doing in the Aston Martin the last couple of years, especially last year when they were good. He's so impressive, Oscar Piastri. But give it up for Lando Norris, a podium for him. And McLaren as well. I believe that they just had several different extensions throughout McLaren, and they're very, very happy with everyone on that team right now, and it showed. There's been a lot of enthusiasm going into Australia, and 3-4 is just about as good as you could hope for McLaren. So congratulations to them. And what else do we have? Oh, yeah. Haas. How about Haas in the double points? I was seeing if it was anyone else before we get to Haas. I don't think there's anyone else on my list here. Haas. Now, a crap load of luck there to clear out, Lewis, who I don't know. That would have been very competitive for Lewis towards the end there if he actually stuck in the race and the Mercedes didn't crap out. But great job by Haas to because also their starting position. You look at 14, 16 starting position. So +7 for Nico, +4 positions for K-Mag. That's +11. We're used to seeing -11 and not positive 11 team as far as total places earned. And that's a lot of places earned, 11. And I know you got 6 automatically because, 3 top 10 cars went out. But that's great for Haas. They really needed that just as bad as any other team. There's several teams that needed a 9th, 10th today, and Haas is the one that got it. They could be, in the end, maybe the number 6 team this year. They are early competing for that. They were early competing for it last year, as I mentioned earlier, and they finished dead last. Let me check that up again. Yes, according to Wikipedia, they finished dead last year. So yeah, with that, any points for Haas is great. Let's see if they can continue. And some of the other teams looks terrible because Alpine and Sauber are doing themselves absolutely no favors at this moment.
No.
Oh, and Williams as well. Which gets us to, sir.
I need to slap my goddamn for that.
Yes, if you've been listening and have not heard the name Williams, it's because we've been saving it for a very special down under slap.
Oh, get out. Get the kangaroos over here. Not even a slap. You're going to get a kangaroo punch in the face. I mean, one, you get Albon crashes FP1, damages the chassis to a point you can stick your hand into it. So that's a problem. But then you don't even have a spare. And rumor has it they might not even have a spare for when they go to Japan. That's not good. I mean, I don't know how you don't have a spare chassis. I mean, come on. That's a gosh darn embarrassment. So get a couple kangaroos over and just line up and just get whacked. Just get punched in the face because that's embarrassing.
My man said kangaroo punch to the face. I praised James Vowles up and down preseason. I'm feeling a little dumb about that right now. And his explanation was terrible as well. He's like, well, it should be here. You're the boss now. Listen, I love anyone from that 09 Braun team that was a part of that. That was just like, a great piece of F1 history there. And I know he was a big part of that as a pretty young guy. He was like in his late 20s, I think, at the time, early 30s. So, I love the enthusiasm, but that was terrible. And, I don't care how bad Logan Sargent's been this year or last year. That's rough, man. That's rough to not even be able to race.
You did it so you could get points, and the guy doesn't even get points.
Finishes
maybe
11.
you should have let Logan drive and just get the miles, get the experience. Let him become a better driver. He's not going to be a better driver when he's sitting in the garage.
Got passed by a Haas.
I mean, get the kangaroos, line them up, punch in the face.
That was as bad of a weekend from a team like that I've seen in a long time. Like front to back. That was one of the worst weekends I've seen I can't even remember the last weekend that's been that bad for any Formula One team. I'll stop.
I've never seen a team show up without a tub. I mean, how did you have a tub in the box? Come on. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. You gotta have a spare, man. Especially with, you got Logan Sargent, who you complain about that he ain't good enough, who crashes the car. So you don't have a spare chassis? Like, come on, light them up. A whole bunch of kangaroos. Let them go buck wild. That's embarrassing. Oh, yes, there it is. Oh, yes. One of the best sounds of the week. As we take that fantasy ride to that fantasy island of Greentopia, where the beer flows like wine and the wine flows like beer. And the cannabis, grows as far as the eyes can see. Look at it. Look at it out there. Green and luscious. Take a little whiff. That air smells fantastic. And let me tell you, boys and girls, I think I was sampling a little too much because I passed out and didn't even make it to the casino. Rough.
Listen, it's not easy when the casino opens at 2 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time here. But actually, if you go to a casino and hang out at casinos long enough, you'll see that...
There's no clocks. There's no clocks, no windows.
No clocks, no windows. You don't even know what's going on. So if you happen to pass out in this ridiculously late race, and I had pretty much a nightmare scenario myself with what happened this morning after the race, before I had to run out to work for a few hours. The 2 of my 3 bets won, and then when I got home, One of them lost. So let's go through them. I had Charles Leclerc plus 100 for podium. Ding, hit that. I had the trifecta plus 275 of Max Verstappen.
That's that right away.
Perez and Carlos Sainz. I had Carlos on podium, but he finished the other side of the podium, the better side of the podium, and first. And so I lost that one. And I had Fernando Alonso finishing 6th at plus 100. Or 6th or better, plus 100, and he did until he didn't, and deservedly so. So I bet 300 greeny bucks. I won 200 greeny bucks, so I'm down 100 additional for the week. I think that takes me under the 4,000 mark. You, sir, remain at a little over 4,200 greeny bucks, but there should be some penalty ensuing potentially for passing out on the casino floor.
Hey man, it happens.
It does happen. It happened to me once. Happened to me once last year. So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to into the history. Into
the archives.
Annals, the archives of the Greenie and the Cheese Spectacular, and find the episode where I passed out on the casino floor, and we'll figure out what the penalty was, and we'll do our best to.
Sometimes you party a little too hard when you're in Greentopia. It happens.
You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, sir.
Yeah, well, sometimes that cannabis just smells a little too sweet.
All right, we know what you're doing this weekend.
Well,
all right. So that leaves us with one thing.
Well, I got back late. I was, I had the Space Guild I was on the Highliner to go to Arrakis again. So it was a lot of stuff was going on, and then I hit the casino and had a little party.
When you have the privilege, as you did, to be in only one of 12 movie theaters on the planet to be able to see I don't know what format it was, 70 millimeter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On the IMAX experience.
Yes.
We actually go to Arrakis and they drop you off.
Yes.
And you get to ride a sandworm.
I was a little too medicated for that, so I didn't, take that ride. But maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Take the shuttle. Drop me off on the worm.
But anyway, what I'm actually my second favorite segment of the program. It's time for In the News. So we got a couple tidbits here for you. We did go over it a little bit earlier, but the rumors galore still remain on if Christian Horner will keep his job and if Adrian Newey and a bunch of the other Aero guys will be jumping ship. So that is to be seen what happens there, but I don't think that's going to stop until something really, some shoe really drops. Because something's going to happen soon. And as we talked about earlier, I think some of the stuff might start bleeding a little bit into the garage. Because that's not a mistake you would see Red Bull make with something like that to happen. So
it happens.
It happens.
But what's my thought?
Hasn't happened in 2 years. So
any company that feels instability at the top will have instability underneath. Remember, in a position where, say, you were brought in the company by Christian Horner, and this is your job, and this is the job you want to keep, and you are no name, nobody in the garage, which there are plenty of them, not just in the garage physically, but all over the company that Christian Horner brought in. And now the person who brought you in and got you the job may be out. It does put you in a mental situation. I think we've all been there one time or another where your boss or the individual that brought you in, even if it's your boss that didn't bring you in, is in a position where they might lose their job. You fear for your own job because if they can get rid of this guy or girl or this individual, this person, they can get rid of me. If you can get rid of Christian Horner, and I know there's so much more to it, as an employee, you can get rid of me. And now instead of going into to work, you're just showing up to do your job. And when people show up to do their job versus people showing up to work, that's the difference here, right? And Ferrari this weekend showed up to work. They didn't show up for a job. They showed up to work, and it showed. All right? And Red Bull for years showed up to work their ass off, to be better than everyone else. And they did not do that this weekend. And Ferrari did. And let's see if that continues or not. Let's see if it's an exception to the rule or this is going to be the new trend. I hope for Formula One's sake that there's somewhere in the middle there and it puts a Ferrari or even potentially a McLaren in a position even to compete for the constructors. So this thing's not over in July.
Yeah. A couple other tidbits of news for you. Alpine is considering to sell the team and just be an engine supplier. What? Who's buying your shitty engines? Let's be honest. I mean, there's no other team uses a Renault engine but them, and because it's underpowered. So who's stepping up to buy them engines? But Andretti is a possible buyer apparently.
Like I
get
said,
themselves in.
Like I said, I don't know what the price tag is. Do you have the price tag there?
I don't have the price tag. It's a rumor going around. I'm sure they're talking. I'm sure it'll be a pretty hefty penny.
I'm just curious because I really think the price that Alpine goes for today should be comparable to the price that it would cost, that it should cost to get into Formula One. Because we said the initial cost to get into Formula One right now to add an 11th team is $200 million, I believe. Which I think we said was a joke when you split it up 10 ways. $20 million, I'd like $20 million. You'd like $20 million. Most people listening at home would like $20 million. But that's not a lot of money for a Formula One team, especially to add an 11th team on the grid. So I think, like I said, $1 billion, sounds like a crazy amount, but that's $100 million per team. I think that adds a little more, a lot more for some teams, not a crazy amount for other teams. But that really changes the landscape, and that really gets a team at the bottom that are struggling an opportunity to get a leg up. So when they add an 11 team, right, a team like Alpine getting a $100 million infusion could then compete better, having that $100 million and adding Andretti as an 11 team, as opposed to Andretti coming in and buying Alpine. So what's that price of the Alpine team going to be? And again, you're starting with employees, you're starting with a foundation and a structure versus what it costs from the outside to get in. And that's why they don't want an 11 team. I think it's not about competition, but I don't know.
Well, Formula One itself wants more teams. The teams want more money for anybody to join.
As they should.
That's
as
how
they should. $200 million is not enough. Not enough. So I'm very curious to see what the price tag is.
But that is in. But the sad part is that's what it is in the bylaws or the rules that have been set forth.
Yeah,
that the teams
agreed
upon. That the teams agreed upon. So
$20 million infusion would have made a difference, and now it doesn't make any difference. Or not big enough difference to add an 11 team.
Then you should have changed the rules recently before you signed them.
I don't know. They'll change them. They're going to change it for 2026. So we'll see that.
All right, and lastly, Aramco is going to be taking over Aston Martin. And they got a plan to lure Max Verstappen. What's your thoughts on that?
I think any team would love to say they have a plan to lure Max Verstappen. Why wouldn't you? You know? It's just talk. It's just talk. If Lewis Hamilton wasn't tied up, then they would have said Lewis Hamilton. It's just whatever flashy names out there. It's someone in the marketing department. They probably have the person who probably wrote that has no idea if they're going to get Max Verstappen or not. They were just told to write an article to get on shows like these. Hopefully, not just literally like these. So they do better than this as far as their marketing strategy. But that's what it is. They're trying to get in the news. In the news, they're trying to get, and they certainly are. They're going to get in the news with just statements like that, and make themselves a little more relevant and put Aramco's name on everyone. But Aramco's been a long-time sponsor of Formula One. They've been around for a long time, and they have a lot of money because they have a lot of oil. So, yeah. Welcome any infusion of cash that these teams can get, because they need a lot of money, and they are using and utilizing this money to further automobiles, around the world, and Formula One. And I get it all the time. People are like, what's the difference between Formula One and NASCAR, especially here in the U.S. and pollutants and all this other stuff. They're pushing the boundaries to make driving better for everyone. Formula One might put themselves out of existence with combustion engines and with the engines they're using, because they're so forward thinking in 20 years from now, right? And that's a situation they've been talking about, or not even 20 years, 15 years from now. But that money just makes all of our cars better in the end. And these are the leading teams to do that, and the leading companies to do that. So you want to get an infusion from an oil company that's forward thinking, that's saying, okay, in 10 years, in 15 years, we're not going to be in the oil business as much as we are now, the way the world is working. And we want to get ahead and be on the front line of the next fuel, whatever. So Aramco and these huge oil companies can be involved in the next thing when it's not oil anymore, or it's less oil. They need to be. They need to be relevant for another 100 years. That's what these big companies do. So they're trying to be relevant. Aramco's trying to be relevant, and it's actually a very interesting from a company like that jumping in.
Fantastic. That's
fantastic. That is the news. Which means, I know we mentioned where we're going next. We do have a week off. We'll have episode 101 next week, which means we'll be back next week with a follow-up with all this stuff. So much happened this weekend. We can't even fit it into the hour show. So we'll be back again next week. And then 2 weeks, sir. Where are we going next?
Going to Suzuka, Japan. Crazy early this year with that schedule shakeup. So should be interesting. See what kind of weather we get.
Shake it up. Shake it up. And as always,
stay medicated, my friends.
We'll see you next time. There are over 400,000 active podcasts going on right now. You guys chose ours. We are unbelievably grateful every single time you guys listen. Check us out on YouTube if you haven't already. Just hit Greenie and the Cheese. Type it in the box. We'll pop right up, and start following us and start checking stuff out. And thank you all, and see you soon. Peace.